And so I wouldn't count on a cell phone. If normally if the internet's up and you got power, that's great. But after that, forget it. You're gonna need your own communications equipment. Okay, so we talked about local. You might have a shortwave radio. You have some radio system in your community, your family, your neighbors. Okay, that's all going to be short range, but you're going to know what's going on there. Okay, now the next question is, what's going on in your state?
A newly discovered software flaw is possibly the most critical vulnerability in the last decade for anybody with an internet-connected device. This software vulnerability grants hackers, spies, criminals easy access to customer data off of countless enterprise-level websites. Your privacy is in your hands. That's why I use Virtual Shield when I connect to the internet. It helps protect my online data from my mobile carrier, internet service provider, and data mining companies. You can head over to virtualshield.com, and in the download tab, I'm going to choose Firefox. And click Install Now to add the Virtual Shield add-on. It's just that easy. And get started with your free 30-day trial. Install it, click Connect. You'll see the shield turn from red to green. And you'll see how from my initial service provider, I was able to even change my IP. Virtual Shield Network protected. I've partnered with Virtual Shield to give the Adapt 2030 audience 50% off for life and a free 30-day trial of Virtual Shield's VPN. Go to virtualshield.com/Adapt 2030 or click on the link in the description box below to start your free trial today. And now on with the video. And good afternoon, everyone. Today with me, Dennis DeLaurier. We're going to talk about some different ideas in terms of getting ready that, things that I'm really falling short of in terms of radio communications. And if you've seen one of our previous interviews, must have been about a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
Dennis also does. Yeah, his website is the gsmprepper.com, and the GSM is for Grand Solar Minimum. Now you can see where we sit today. So a couple of topics we wanted to cover on Dennis's side: prepping with the food, the water, health and safety. I was talking about how I hit my hand with a hammer just on simple construction, trying to put a table together. Also radio communications, bow phone. What are you going to do I have a CB radio for my car as well with a 10,000 watt antenna on it. And then greenhouses and getting out almost instant gardens by putting grow bags together. So that's what Dennis's side's about. Me, I'm going to dovetail into that with the fertilizer and the herbicide shortages, where we're going with planetary alignments that are going to cause magnetic disturbances on our planet, i.e. more volcanic eruptions, stranger weather with jet streams, cloud cells. So hopefully, today's talk between he and I will give you some really valuable information in terms of getting ready. And remember, if you want to go to the gsmprepper.com, and remember that GSM's Grand Solar Minimum. So Dennis, I appreciate you spending your time with you. We've had a couple good conversations over the last weeks, especially with this incredible cold in areas that are not so used to it, power prices rising, and it seems like we're in the year of the change. And, you've been following the Grand Solar Minimum for so many years. You wrote the book down there. Now, I just want to quote it correctly here. Surviving the Grand Solar Minimum is at Amazon. And also in that, you had a lot of prepper and preparation guides to help people along on this journey, because you've been doing it longer, have a lot more knowledge, and you also had that microgreens business. So you really understand greenhouse growing and taking a logical step to turn agriculture into a business, which a lot of people don't. They just grow, they eat, but you have so many different facets of that. So welcome to the show. And leave your comments in the description box below, what you like, what you want to hear more about, what you think we need to expand more on that we didn't. So if we come around for a second show, we can add that as bullet notes. But Dennis, the floor is yours.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I think you and I have been going at this for, you've probably been going at it longer than I have, for sure. Like I say, I started, years back with Robert Felix and John Casey and the Ice Age Farmer. And then I ran into your YouTube channel. And then I think we got started. We had kind of a mutual acquaintance, and it was you had written a book with, and he kind of got me introduced to you. And it's we've been what I would consider friends for quite a few years. So anyway, yeah, I'm really happy to be back. I've got like I say, I do have a blog now that I'm started. It's called that's THE, and then GSM Prepper, and it's just a blog, and that I have a good time with. And I've recently published 3 blogs on radio communications, which I think is paramount for for a prepper to have equipment and ready to be used, and should practice using it. So I'd like to kind of get into that to start with really quickly, if that's okay.
Yeah. Now, for those of you, my channel, and I I have some gear, but I'm just a beginner at it. So let me show you what I got here. I got the bow phone. You can get this on Amazon, and it came with this standard antenna, which I thought was a little short for different types of range. So I just went online, and then I bought a secondary antenna that still gives you doubling of it actually triples the range, because when you're talking about antenna length and size here. And then I would be on the mountain behind me. And then also I got an ops antenna here, so you can get something like this. It's foldable, and then it extends out to 3 full feet. And you would see, I even hit the ceiling fan with that. And then you would just connect that there, and then you would have a full, incredibly long antenna that would, extend your range and length. And, to have communications further out is going to be better. So far, I have been able to program in, I'm going to say 6 of my favorites that are local here in East Tennessee that have a lot of traffic on people just talking daily events, or telling you where you can buy different kind of compost manures. There's one that's strictly for agriculture. There's another that's for emergencies. There's one that's for a general chat. There's ones for, conditions for road accidents and sort of thing. And people so I'd like to just drop in and listen. I don't have my operator's license yet. In the motion of it, I have the book, and walk me through some more things. So if somebody else is exactly like me, where do I sit? Where do they sit?
Okay, well, just right off, I can look at your equipment. You have a UHF VHF, a little walkie-talkie, or handy-talkie as they're called. Just from looking at the battery on there, it looks like it's an 8-watter. It's has 8 watts of power. It probably has about 300 different channels or more that you can program. And you're going to learn, you're going to have to probably download some software. Although you can get software for that particular radio, I would submit that you download Chirp. It's spelled just like it sounds, chirp, like a bird's chirp. And it'll program just about any radio on Earth. You need a USB programming cable, okay, that you put into the radio, and away you go. So the other thing is that you're going to need a license for that, David. You can't just use that radio for anything but probably ham radio. It's going to be illegal, and because of the power and the antennas and all that. So, but good news about that is that it's really, really simple to get a ham radio license nowadays. There's like 3 levels. There's technician, general, and extra class. And most people start at the technician class. And as you know, America's been dumbed down. So you can actually just study for the questions, and they give you the answers. So if you've got a memory at all, you can probably pass that test. Although I would suggest that you learn a little more about radio communications and radios. And if you're going to be a ham radio operator, you need to understand that it's a hobby. It's not a toy. Okay. It's not, you can't broadcast music or profanity or anything like that using ham radio equipment. You can't interfere with people. They'll put you in prison for that. It is all radio communications in the United States is controlled by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. One of those 3-letter organizations, governmental organizations. To take the test, what you do is you find yourself a local ham club. Okay. And they'll be really, really happy to see you and show up. And probably once a month, they do the test. They made an agreement with the FCC that one person in that ham club who already has their license and all that kind of stuff and has been, vetted, can give you that test. And you'll need a driver's license, arrive with a check or I don't know what they do nowadays, but you're gonna, have to pay for it. And then you take the test, and if you pass, one day your little license is going to arrive in the mail, and it's going to have your call letters. My call letters, like I say, I've been a ham for 80 years. I'm 88 years old. When I was 8 years old, I got my first radio license. But believe it or not, then you had to know what you were doing. You didn't know what was on the exam. You just studied and had to understand electronics and ham radio and transmitters and receivers, frequencies, all that kind of stuff. And you don't really need to know that nowadays. Like I say, they've dumbed it down quite a bit, but that still doesn't make it valuable. And so you're going to receive that license. And one of the nice things about being in the a ham radio operator is there's a lot of inexpensive equipment out there. It totally expands the things that you can do. And I'm gonna talk about some other stuff that you can just go down and buy. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one, David. Yeah, study that. Go find you a ham club. Tell them you want to take your ticket license or take your test. So anyway, that's how you get started in it. But like I say, ham radio opens a huge field of things you can do. Okay, some of the things that I did is I bounced radio waves off the moon. Okay, I've communicated with other hams all over the world, using low frequency radios. I've communicated through ham radio satellites. There's some up there. Mesh networks, that's cool. Okay, you can mesh in all your neighbors if they're okay, and you can. If they have a camera in their location, you can zip into that particular mesh, look at what their camera's seeing, or talk to them, or text them, or all kinds of stuff. Send an email even on a mesh system. So it's endless the things you can do, and so but like I say, what I would suggest is that while we're if you're really really thinking about getting into into radio communications, which, let's face it, if things get tough, you're going to need to know what's going on. Okay. And you're going to need neighbors, and you're going to need a community. And that's where radio communications really kind of combines everything together. Okay. You can't, just go out on the street and holler at each other. They may be, 3 or 4 blocks down the street. So anyway, and of course, the first question people ask about radios is, well, how far can I talk? And maybe that's not the right question to ask. How far can I talk? But
yeah, because talking short range, anytime we're going out or one of us is going up in the fields or going up in the forest, these are 3-mile range here. These are the ones you see on every construction site.
Right.
We have 4 of these that are paired on the same channel, and I custom set the channels so nobody can really drop in. You got 48 different choices on waves. So, I mean, it'd be really difficult. But one thing interesting is when I was playing with the ham radio, I was able to pick up the signal off of this on the ham radio because I knew what it was programmed at.
Right.
So I was able to drop in on a specific frequency on this Baofeng because I knew what this was programmed to. So even, that gives me some options to go super far away and still communicate on these things, even if you're closer. So these are 3-mile range.
Yes.
And, with the 3-foot antenna and the height that you would get, a little bit different. So how do you see it? If the power were to go out and you did not have communications, are you looking for national communication? Are you looking to talk to somebody in a different state? Are you looking to talk to somebody local? I mean, how would you do it? Walk me through the whole, okay, power goes out for a couple of days. And you're like, the news isn't even on. We don't have power. The emergency radio, everybody should have an emergency radio. I have a cranked one where you can listen to the AM, FM, and you can get in on the weather channel. So that's just like the basic of the basic. You need that, but I can't broadcast on that. So where would you go first in case communications are cut and all we are is relying on these different devices here? What are you going to walk me through your scenario of where you would go first, who you talk to first, how you get information first, the first information points that you would dabble into, and join the conversation. Look for that type of information flow to get you more informed of what's going on regionally and then nationally, and then really in the loal area. Like you said, with some local repeaters.
One morning you wake up and there's no power. Okay. And for some reason or other, who knows why? Okay. Maybe it's a crap hit the whatever fan thing has happened. Okay. The financial system's collapsed and people are going mad and crazy. And all of a sudden the cell towers go down. There's no electrical power. What on earth are you going to do to actually know what's going on? Okay. So there's three ways to do that. Okay. First of all, you said that, hey, I have a crank radio. And so here my phone's over there doing weird stuff. You have a crank radio, AM and FM radio. Okay. That's the first thing you ought to have, because you're going to get local news that way. Okay. If there are radio stations still up, and a lot of them do have backup power and things like that, you're going to be able to get local news, area news from the radio station. So that would be the first thing that I would get. I would get one of the crank up ones, and that's what I have. I've had it for years and it works great.
Can I show you my?
Yeah.
All right. So it's just a little small one like this. It includes a light.
Yeah.
And then on the back,
a light and a crank.
Yeah. And it has the crank on the back. Yeah. And I leave this hung up in the closet, so even I could stumble to it in the dark and I could still get to it. Because if I can get to this, I have an immediate light source without having to light any candles. And then I can just move from there, because, this is about how bright it is here. And definitely instantly you got, you can turn on, you got AM, FM, and the weather channel here. So, again, this got to be in your arsenal too. Not that I'm any expert, but I just know enough that I think that this would be a basic for anybody. And these aren't very expensive either.
No, they're not. Yeah. Well, you're step one. You're in there, David. You've got step one.
I'm in the zone.
You're in the zone. Okay. The second thing that you really want to know is what's going on locally. Okay. And I'm not talking, and I'm saying not from a radio station standpoint, but what are your neighbors experiencing? What's going on? Okay. How are they doing? What's happening at their location? Okay. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. One is the, I guess that, those second radios you brought in here, those are probably called family radio service radios. Okay. The family radio service is the ones you can just go down to Walmart or wherever and just pick a pack of 2 of them, bring them home, stick some batteries in them. And, you've got them and, set it to a channel and maybe even a tone, which we'll talk about what a tone does. But a tone essentially brings the squelch up off the radio and gives you audio if someone transmits. Okay. And so you can bring those home. There's no license required. Your children can use them, your family, your wife, your uncle, anybody. Okay. And as you say, they're limited range. And the range really is decided on by a lot of things. And one is the antenna. Is you showed us all those different antennas. So you're doing pretty good in step 2 there. Okay. The problem is that your neighbors are going to have that equipment. Okay. And so what I know this is, you got to be careful, because there's legalities in using radios. Okay. But essentially, if you had 10 or 15 sets of those radios, okay, and you could hand those out to your neighbors. Okay. And you could communicate with them. Now, what I've got a little, I don't know if you can see that radio. That is a 12 watt, 16 channel Bofeng or whatever it is. What is it? A B888 or something like that. These things are made like bricks. Okay. You can program them. There's 16 channels and they're great. Okay. Well, I can't use those legally. This is only ham radio operator can use this thing. The reason is I can screw the antenna off, and it's not certified. What is it? Something, I forget what the certification, 95 something or other, the FCC. So you have to certify these radios. They're not certified. So I can't use them except for ham radio operations. But anyway, if I had 20 of these and everything went to heck, at that point, I don't really care what the FCC wants me to do. Okay. I'm going to have some radio communications because of safety and my family and everybody else. I would probably use these things. Normally, I would not suggest you do that. Do it legally. Okay. Obey the law because, that's what makes up a country, laws, and everybody breaks the law, then, chaos. So,
can I stop you? Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Then?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So in an emergency situation, what is it with the law that would allow a non-operator, licensed person to get on because it is an emergency situation, to be able to broadcast, even though you don't have your call sign, you don't have your operator's license or whatnot?
Right.
So what's the legality issue there? Because in an emergency, the rules are going to change. And is there some leeway there in an emergency for using these devices if you're not licensed?
Yeah. Life and death. That's pretty well sums it up. Life and death. Okay. Nobody's going to, beat you across your brow because, you jumped on a radio that you don't have a license for, and you hollered about some health or some disaster that was going to happen or was happening. I mean, that's not going to happen. Okay. That's why I really, really think, don't worry about that. Get your darn ham radio license. And as you probably heard, it's been so dumbed down now that it's just a memory test is what it is. Okay. But to be really, really good at it in the finishing, you're going to be a super prepper if you get a ham radio license. Okay. And get the equipment. You're going to be so prepped. It's going to be amazing. Okay. So let's go back to this. Hey, there's no power. Well, what are you going to do? Well, obviously, the radio you have, it comes with a battery charger, right? You plug it into the wall. Well, the wall don't work anymore. So you're going to need at least a couple 100-watt solar panels, minimum, I would say, 200 watts of power, a nice battery, okay, that you can charge up, and an AC, a small little 100-watt, 200-watt inverter. Okay, and you can keep all your radios then charged with that using solar power. Okay, that's
I do
really
have a second battery.
option.
I went out of my way and I bought a second battery for this.
Yeah,
just in case, because if you're up anywhere, you always carry the second battery with you, just like you would in a camera. If anybody that does photography, you always have a second battery with you because it might run out. Same thing with communications.
You can probably get a battery charger for your car or truck for that radio there you have. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen those systems. It's an inverter that you put actually on your truck or your car that turns your car into a power station.
Yeah.
Instead of having a generator like you would do a Honda i2200 or something,
right?
Just do the same thing, but your car is the thing that's now the inverter. You got to buy the device and install it.
Well, at home, if you're going to do this at home, you're going to need the panels. You're going to need the battery. You're going to need what are they called? A charge regulator. It makes sure that the battery if it's topped off, okay, it quits charging the battery, which can destroy a battery. And it also will shut you down if the battery gets too low. Okay. You need those. I have a couple of them. I have believe it or not, I'm a weirdo, I guess, but I have a Faraday shield or Faraday cage, and I keep backups in that. Okay. So if
you're the smart
for
one,
some reason, either anyway, I don't want even to go there, but like I say, I'm a bit strange perhaps. But that's prepping. Okay. Being ready and being ready for things that might happen that you would never think would happen. And so anyway, so that's the local communications, your neighbors, that's the next level up. Okay. And that's really the most important, actually, if you think about it. It's very, very important to know the welfare of your neighbor, what's happening around you locally when maybe, with 10 or 15 miles, is there 50 people coming from the city looking for food? I don't know. Well, maybe that needs to concern you. And how are you going to know that? Okay. And if there's no communications, and I can guarantee you, if the power grid goes down, there's not going to be any kind of communications, period. Okay. Unless somebody has backup propane power or diesel or something like that. An example, I live close to Austin, and there's a little town called Round Rock, Texas. And one winter, they had a huge ice storm, and it took out the police communication system, just totally. They couldn't talk to their cars or nothing worked. And so the local ham radio community got in there, brought in a base station, put up an antenna at the police station, put ham radio operators in all the cars, the police cars, and they were back in business. Okay, and we had law enforcement on the street, taking care of wrecks and life-threatening things because of all the ice. And so that's kind of what ham radio operators do too. Okay, that's one of the main reasons that actually ham radio exists, is a backup, a national backup safety type of radio system that is done by people who are, pretty well fanatics, about it. I mean, let's face it, I've been doing it 80 years. That makes me a pretty fanatic, I think, and in length anyway. So now that's what we've done. Okay, you've got the local, you're looking for radio stations, FM. You might even get a shortwave radio if you're really, really interested in globally what's going on. Okay, and you can get those with crank up too if you want.
Can I interject something in there
Yeah.
on the time duration of that? For those of you out there that don't know, the cell phone towers also have a battery backup on them, but generally it's going to last no longer than 48 hours. Emerson was the main battery producer for those batteries that go into the cell phone towers. And the longest that I'd seen, just on a regular basis, not on a military basis, of course, 72 hours. Yes. So the power doesn't come back on after 72 hours. Even your mobile phone towers are not going to be able to communicate. So if you think, oh, the towers will stay on, I can still use my phone. Yes, to a point, and yes, for a limited amount of time, until those batteries are recharged somehow through the grid if it comes back on. If it doesn't, it's just like anything else, it just runs out.
Yeah. Well, it actually gets worse than that, David. Cell towers use the internet. Okay. Like if I make a phone call in, let's say, Austin, Texas, and I want to talk to someone in Dallas on my cell phone, well, I'm not talking, the only thing I'm using the radio in my cell phone for is to get into that cell tower. Okay. From then on, all the way to Dallas is internet. It gets into Dallas, goes back into the tower. It connects, rings your cell phone if you have it on. And now you're using radio communications again. So it's radio communications up to the tower, from the tower to the internet to where you're calling, and then back up to the tower and to radio to your cell phone. So if the internet's gone down, then cell communications is garbage, and it's, you're out of luck. So
I was not aware of that. That's a nice little factoid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And on top of that, these cell towers keep track of where you are. They track you. They know where you are. If you're in your car and you're driving along, and your signal to one cell tower is getting weak, okay, there may be another cell tower that's kind of monitoring you, and then saying, hey, my signal into here is stronger than it is to the one you originally were using, and it'll switch you to that cell tower. So that requires communications between the two cell towers over the internet to know what the signal levels are to switch you to that other silly cell tower. So as you can see, it's pretty complex. Okay, it's very, very complex. And so I wouldn't count on a cell phone. Normally if the internet's up and you got power, that's great, but after that, forget it. You're gonna need your own communications equipment. Okay, so we talked about, local, you might have a shortwave radio, you have some radio system in your community, your family, your neighbors. Okay, that's all going to be short range, but you're going to know what's going on there. Okay, now the next question is, what's going on in your state? Okay, and again, let's assume we have no electricity. So you can't go onto the internet and, you can get into scanner frequencies for different things. I can listen to the Los Angeles airport if I want. Okay, the traffic going in there over the internet. Okay, well, you can't do that anymore. You don't know what's going on. So the next best bet is low frequency ham radio equipment. Okay. And these are frequencies from about 80 meters, which is around 3.7 megahertz, up to and maybe 40 meters, which is in the 7 megahertz range. Okay. Well, if I have ham radio equipment that covers that and I have the antennas, okay, I can talk all over the state on 40 meters, which is, like I say, around 7 megahertz. At night, that range even gets further. I can talk into Oklahoma, Kansas. And if conditions are really good, I could probably get into New York, even at that lower frequency. Okay. Now, if I want to communicate globally, okay, I need to go up and higher in frequency. And that'll be the 20 meter band and the 15 and the 10 meter band. But normally 20 meters is the best. And on 20 meters, if conditions are correct, 20 meters is around 14 megahertz. Okay. And I have, say, some single sideband equipment, but I can also have, but believe it or not, you can have digital equipment on 20 meters. I can talk to people. I can get on my keyboard and type out text, which is sent digitally over 20 meters to someone else that decodes that, and the text shows up on their monitor. Okay. That's one thing you can do in ham radio.